first, we're here for facilities and finance. We're doing facilities first. Just want to read this real quick. The Pennridge School Board welcomes public comment according to policy 903. We remind everyone of the following. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the board. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and note their name and municipality. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer rather than to individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. Speaker may speak once during each comment period. Please note that these sessions are designated for comments to protect the confidentiality and privacy rights of all members of our community. The board encourages members of the public to direct any comments regarding particular individuals, such as students or district employees, privately to the superintendent or other appropriate administrator, or to communicate with the board privately by sending an email to pscschoolboard@pennridge.org. Questions raised and not addressed may be followed up at a later time. We'll start with any public comment. Seeing none, we'll move right into the first item for facilities, which is obsolete items for review. We have letters A through C. It appears that all three are being sent to public surplus. Any questions? No? Okay. Then we'll move that forward to the next board meeting. We'll move to item number 2, which is a review of the district-wide security camera installation bid results. We did talk about this at the last facilities meeting. It was pulled from the agenda on Monday because there were some questions, so we wanted to take some more time with this and address any questions that were brought forward from board members. Dr. Radigan, you want to comment on that?
Sure. I'm going to give a little bit of a recap for everybody to show us how we got to this point. One of the goals the board had for me this year, if you remember, was to give recommendations to you regarding security initiatives with the cost-benefit analysis. So this is one of the things that we are recommending to you, and it really came from a couple different reasons. One is, as you know, you approved the ALICE training for us to have with the entire staff. And when the trainers from ALICE were here, they said they recommended definitely cameras at all sites and monitors in the offices, because all the research shows that is a deterrent when people know they are possibly being monitored by cameras. Also, in talking to the high school administrative team, Mr. Daubert and Mr. Loeffler met with them, and they shared their concerns. You all know how large the high school is, that there just really are not enough cameras in the high school. There's no stairwell coverage, and of course that's a place where things could happen. The cameras they do have are old and failing, and in looking into it, Mr. Loeffler learned that we may not even be able to get replacement parts. The monitor that we have is obsolete. It's an analog. So they just felt the situation was not a good one in terms of quality and quantity of cameras. So that led us to think, well, what's happening at all the other schools? We shouldn't just worry about the high school, because as we all know, every school should be equipped in an equal fashion for protection of students and staff. So Mr. Loeffler did that with Dewey, and as you all know, we need a new phone system. And what I think you have found in some of the answers that you provided to us, and Mr. Dahlberg gave you the answers. The nice thing is that the phone system and the camera system hopefully will be able to interact well together, and the wiring needed for the cameras can also help us with the phones as well. Back in October, we did talk about the summer capital improvement projects at a facilities meeting, and at the end of that month, you did vote for us to go out to bid. Just as a reminder, this money comes out of capital projects, and we already had it budgeted. And the good news was it came in under what was predicted. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of history, how and why we're at this point where we're asking the board to consider this district-wide security camera system.
Thank you, Dr. Radigan. Mr. Loeffler, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Testing. The only thing I wanted to add is, as Dr. Adigan said, also at North, we were having issues the last 2 or 3 years with cameras. Mostly they're exterior cameras. They had 3 and then 4 exterior cameras down and then 1 or 2 inside. So they asked me to replace the cameras. I brought Simplex in, and in fact, they could not replace them either because of the analog digital switchover. Their fix would have been 20 or 30,000. At that time, we said to North, can you hold off a year? You know, and I think we're going to go through with this. So, in addition to the high school cameras failing, so are North's.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Daubert had sent out an email requesting any questions that board members may have had. And there were several questions that had gone to him, and those answers were sent out to the board. Do you want to speak to any of those? Or do you want me to review? Does anybody have specific questions?
I'd like to add a question or two, and I apologize. It's been a terribly busy week for me, so I was not able to respond to your email. So I have a couple of questions regarding, I guess, our crime statistics. If we're trying to solve something with this, I'm trying to wrap my hands around what are we trying to solve. I understand that the exterior of the buildings, I understand the cameras are old and if they need replacement, upgrading, et cetera, and we need more coverage on the exterior, I'm fine with that. But I'm a little conflicted at the moment with what we're trying to solve inside the building. I'm not aware of any high crime rate inside the buildings. I'm not aware of assaults between students and teachers and the other way around. So I'm a little conflicted with the number of cameras that we want to put in the buildings specifically. I've read a lot of stuff over the last couple of weeks regarding the impact of this. There's an impact to there's a psychological impact to the children, constantly being under surveillance. Okay, that impact we can't overlook. So I'm really a little conflicted right now. I don't want to turn our institution of learning into a juvenile detention facility.
Is that okay? Dr. Radigan, you said that Alice really was the one behind these cameras, the importance of these cameras inside the building. Is that correct? Yeah. The Alice trainer?
I wouldn't say they were the one behind it. They certainly were a contributing factor as to our recommendation to you.
Okay. So my question is, did they suggest how many, or recommend how many cameras in the school, or per square foot, or, I mean, how did we come up? This is just an enormous amount of cameras to me. And
That's where our engineers come in. So and also Mr. Loeffler walked around all the buildings with each of the principals and just said, what are your areas of concern? And based on the research we had from Alice, that's how, they determined how many we needed to cover our needs. And to answer your question, I certainly can see what you're saying, Mr. Krause, about students maybe feeling they're under surveillance. On the other hand, unfortunately, in the day and age we're living in, if we know we can put these cameras in place and have a system where people could maybe even feel more safe because things are being constantly monitored. We did a survey, Mr. Daubert did, of all the districts in Bucks County, and every single one that responded to him, I think that was just about everybody, said that each one of their schools has cameras. We have 7 schools without cameras right now.
But this many cameras per school?
Again, I'm not going to argue the amount. That's from the engineering perspective. I can see your concern. It does seem like a lot. One other thing I didn't mention that I would like to add is that the nice thing about this new system is that you can watch things in real time. And police departments can also watch in real time. What we have right now is, and I think somebody said this, you only can replay the tape after the fact. But because, the technology today is so up to date, it's great that we can, we can be communicating through our walkie-talkies now, looking at the cameras, and then the police can be watching them at the same time. We say we need help. And Mr. Ruff, you probably can add to that.
What I really wanted to add was the amount of cameras. If you notice, there was a alternating
Jeff,
duct one.
Jeff, can you use the microphone that Ada was using?
Not working too well.
Thank you.
Then I'm going to be very loud.
Is that on here?
Yes, that is on there. So if you look at the camera vids, alternate 1 deduct and alternate 2 deduct were to remove cameras from gymnasiums and auditoriums. So that exact number, I don't know, maybe Josh does, but for the auditorium, say here, there was probably at least 2, if not 3 or 4 in here. So deduct, we could take 4 more cameras out of the Penn Central tow. So I didn't know if you knew that, so there are deducts to remove some cameras. We put that in for different reasons, either money savings or to the cameras.
Mr. Loeffler, can you just, you and I had talked about, in regard to the Alice, and I guess it speaks to what Dr. Radigan was just talking about, is that the cameras are in real time, and you know, one of the situations, and not that we want to put these cameras in for the purpose that nobody wants to expect something to happen in the buildings, but you know, in this situation that you have something happening in one building, talk about what you would explain to me how it can be viewed from outside.
Correct. And again, hopefully it would never ever happen. But and one thing Alice talked to us about was if something's happening. And part of our training was, you know, we were on the first floor and we were locked in rooms. And through the PA system, we heard that the intruder was in the cafeteria. Well, we know the cafeteria is on the second floor, fairly far away. That gave us the ability to either take time to barricade or run. Well, we all ran, and nobody got shot. So with that ability, the police can show up, they'll be able to get an IP address, they'll be able to get on, they'll be able to see where they're at too. So they can start having communication with whomever. You know, if you have somebody in the cafeteria, you can send a lot of people out the front doors, the back doors up to the field, that sort of thing. I would be able to see that in my office, or if it was an all call and every school understood that the high school was under, all the principals should jump on and start seeing what's going on. So that's one thing that Alice really kind of pushed, that ability to communicate. With the walkie-talkies that we're going through right now, that's kind of step one, the ability to communicate. The new phone system is part of it. The cameras are also part of it. One thing I wanted to add was that Bucks County IU security meeting about a month ago, and Mr. Kohler, who I know well, is bringing some of the schools in there. So this would be more of, say, a weather disaster, hurricane, where 5 or 6 of the schools were in trouble. If we allowed them, they have an area where they're going to go in, and they can pull up the 5, 6 schools that allow them. So then they can start dispatching out of that. So we talked about if we would allow them, that Bucks County IU would also look at our schools, whether it's weather related or true or not.
I want to go back to something you just said. You were talking about how the authorities would look in and principals would look into the different buildings. So if someone gets an IP address, someone could be able to hack into our, you know, and see the kids. I just, when you said IP address, it made me think.
That's my layman's term of using it. Maybe Ms. Miller. It's not really an IP address, or is it?
Well, they will be IP devices,
Okay.
yes.
So, yeah, but hacking in, I don't know how you could do
But,
that.
I mean, it will be secure. It's going to be a secure link. It's not going to be a public link. And it'll be shared.
Diane, we can't hear you.
So they will be all IP device. The cameras will be IP device. We'll be able to share that IP address with the authorities. But my understanding is they're not going to be like looking at something during a regular day. It will just be when there's an event, then we'll be sharing that IP. They'll have a secure login, so there will be security set up so that they'll be on a special channel, that they'll be able to tap into our system, but only when there's an event going, is the way I understand it.
So,
Yeah, Jeff, I have a question regarding, you said they can tap into the camera feed. How will the authorities know what camera to tap into. We're putting 127 in the high school. Are they just going to have to keep scanning through them until they find where the shooter is?
Diane, don't the phone system play into this, or
Well,
could it?
yes, I think it is. So, will the phone system play into it? So if there is some kind of an event that is occurring, what we're proposing or going out to bid for with the phone system, there's a security piece there as well, where somebody will have to isolate where the shooter is, or the intruder, excuse me, where the intruder is, and then that IP can be notified or put right into a notification that can be broadcast out, not only to the command center, so to speak, within the district, but then it could also be broadcast out to the authorities as well.
Right. So it's going to take some human action, some action on somebody's part to identify through the phone system where the activity is.
Through the cameras, correct. Yes, yeah, there will have to be some type of manual intervention.
So would there be, the other school districts that have cameras, is there any kind of a policy that goes along with installing cameras like this? Because I understand you all already know how I feel about kids being monitored. We've already had that discussion. So I agree with that sentiment. I share that sentiment that I don't want children to be constantly under surveillance, because I think it does do something to you. But we also have safety concerns. Do these other school districts have any kind of a policy that could assure parents that this system really is for their safety and it wouldn't be used egregiously to monitor them? You know what I'm trying to say? I think it would be complicated to write a policy. I'm curious if any school district has ever addressed it.
I don't know, Mrs. Cullen, but we can certainly find out, and, PSBA gives a sample policy, so we can ask them as well, to make sure we reassure parents that this is for the protection of their children, not the gotcha, getcha kind of attitude. That's not what we're trying to do.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think that that's the intention. Obviously, it's a security, it's a question of security. I think, which is what drove this whole project in the first place. There's concerns here. I guess my question is, what are the biggest concerns in order that we're discussing tonight to hold this up? Because at the last meeting, we discussed it, we sat there, everybody agreed to move it forward to the board meeting to vote on. And I don't know if it's because we had time to digest this a little bit or what happened, but we're back here talking about it. Go ahead, Bear.
Can you hear me okay? How's that, better? How's that, better? Hello?
You're close.
So that's really the big question. Why are we here going over this now in this fashion? So some of us have questions, including me, what was the scope of the design? What is our philosophy as respects students? And so these are just coming into my mind right now, because these are some of the things, and I think Dr. Ariel may even talk about this, hopefully he will. We talked about it a little bit. We kind of are, the cart is ahead of the horse here a little bit, but not really, because we lag behind when you start doing comparisons of security cameras versus other schools. Something we always look at that. But what is our philosophy going to be? Is our philosophy going to be, we're not going to be in the classroom. What is our philosophy as a board? And how does that philosophy start to interfere with deciding what the people we're paying to do are doing for us? So that's kind of blending all together a little bit. Like, is it really a question of how many cameras we need? How do I know? I don't know the answer to that question. Tonight I learned that, Mr. Loeffler and principals and the engineer, they went, hallway by hallway and tried to get the most coverage. Well, we didn't really talk about that before. So, part of the reason I was glad to see it come off the vote is, I know it's important. I didn't want to see it get killed, but at what point do we as board members start mixing of the philosophy, the direction, with the actual execution and the tools themselves. Like, that's where I start. I don't know how many cameras we should have. I don't know exactly where they should go. But the people that know that, we have to trust that they're doing the right thing for us. So I know that we have the money. So I don't think the board, I don't think I did a good enough job asking questions prior to this. It kind of snowballed along, and everybody sounds like a great thing. It's about security, it's about the kids, it's about, it's part of Alice, it's part of the whole program, it's not one part of it. We don't have people monitoring. That was one of my issues. Like, who's going to be who's watching that camera that we're talking about where we're directing kids out of the building? Now, unfortunately, that falls into another financial category. That's a different project. That's not capital projects. That's general fund. So why am I talking about that now? Maybe we forgot. I don't think we forgot, but sometimes these things happen. So I think it's a good thing. I just don't know. I'm struggling with the philosophy and where our philosophy. I agree with Bill and Mrs. Cullen. I hate the cameras everywhere you go. I see pictures of me driving down the highway. People show me, it's like, wow, good thing I had my hands on the wheel, or whatever. So, but now this is our school or all of our schools. I think we need to do something. I think we really got a little bit too out in front of this, letting it flow too quickly without asking enough questions in advance. But in the end, we ended up looking like, okay, I'd rather us throw the brakes on than just rush into something for it or against it. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. We should have had them before. I know I'm talking too much about this, but it's another one of those things that's like, okay, we're not qualified. We hire Mr. Loeffler, the firm. Tell us what we need to do to execute the plan we're trying to execute. We don't need to know. I don't even know what the IP address is. Good question, but that's for you guys. We just have to decide. Do we want our kids safe, and to what degree of privacy are we going to sacrifice for that? And one thing. And then secondly, we have to rely on the expertise of the people that run the school. Tell us. Like, I was shocked to hear 500 cameras, but then after thinking of all the hallways, when I was lost in this hallway again, I'm thinking, there's a lot of hallways. So I'm not trying to make a joke out of it, but that's where I'm coming from. I'm one of the reasons it got pulled off the agenda, and there were my thoughts as to why it did. And I'm still a little confused as to where we blend in philosophy versus we're telling the experts how they should do their job.
Well, Mr. Cassidy has invited me to talk, and I never had a problem with that, so I will do so. Here's my perspective on this whole process. I think, in a way, in the past, and of course being old, the past always makes a difference to me, and having been around a while, we, in past times when we did capital projects, actually got a book that had all the information about the projects for this year and up to 5 years further out. In the era of electronic communications, that has been lost, in my opinion. I went back and looked at the minutes of both the October full board meeting and the October Finance Facilities Committee meeting. And indeed, these do appear there, but basically what appeared was that were we willing to go out for bids? The estimate was there, at least in terms of documentation, not much more, which I think is unfortunate in a way. We should have gotten more information to start with. The board voted unanimously at the October meeting, and I can't tell you how many, I don't recall whether all board members were there, but to move this forward into the bid situation. So whether we were paying enough attention or not, I don't know. Did we have enough information? I don't think so, but hindsight is always easy to put in place. The bids obviously have come in well under what the estimate was, especially when you include the electrical upgrades that we're going to discuss separately tonight. And at this point, we're at the point where if we don't move it forward tonight, we start over, because this is a bid. So you can accept the bid with or without the alternate deducts, or we end up rejecting the bid, in which case we can't do half of it. We can't take out 100 cameras or 200 or 300 without going back to start the process again. Like Mr. Casper, I don't have any good feeling for how many cameras are in the buildings. I would say, in terms of the surveillance issue, we've approved cameras on buses. Mr. Geiger's here tonight. He would tell us how many we might have, but we obviously have them, and any student who rides the bus is subject to surveillance. And there was a reason for that, because of what went on buses and trying to determine who did what and which students might need to be disciplined because of what happened. So I support this tonight, but I would like in the future to have more information up front, and for board members, I think we need to ask more questions if we're uncomfortable with any of the aspects of whatever it is we're discussing. And I would say the first opportunity for this is the phone system, which is coming hard and fast because it's also part of the summer projects, capital projects. Another comment I have is turning this down probably means we won't be doing this summer. This is part of the overall capital improvement projects. And if we postpone it, say to next summer, then what from next year's capital project gets pushed aside and further down the road? And what happens if something important comes up, if we lose a roof in tonight's storm, for instance, and have to do that? So I have a lot of concerns, but I do intend to support this tonight. I think, in a way, I appreciate Mr. Dauber's efforts to answer the questions. I think the questions were good questions that the board submitted, and I thought the answers were also very reasonable answers in terms of what I thought could be expected from that. So that's my perspective.
I don't think it's really, nobody wants to meddle necessarily in the, the everyday practices in the schools. You're right, that we hire people to do things, and I believe in that strongly. I think I wasn't one of the ones, I was surprised when I found out it was going to be pulled off, because I assumed it was just going to go ahead because we had those discussions. What I think shocked people was what, Dr. Aramel, what you were just saying. We didn't have any information and everybody agreed to it, but then the number of cameras, I think, gave people pause. So I don't know if it's so much people wanting to control what happens inside the school as much as just wanting more explanation and being comfortable with it. That's my point of view.
I do have one more question, and this is a little bit in the minutia, but the cameras that we've selected for this project, they're all IP-based, and we all know electronics. Are they upgradable through the same IP system? So when firmware comes out for the camera, not the server, software, etc., are we able to push it? Are we going to be in a position in another 5 years where all our 500 cameras are obsolete?
I don't know. I would like to say I assume yes, but that would be wrong. I don't know.
Well, I think that's one of the challenges we face with any of these
Electronics.
projects, cameras, phones, computers, that, they're, in the world we live in today, they're obsolete before you can get them out of the box sometime.
Understand, but I
So
can...
I understand what you're saying. It's a hard question, I guess.
I can download updates to my computer. I can download new BIOS to my computer. So I'm just making sure that if we've selected a particular device, does it have the capability? Or is there another device that's $10 more?
Well, and I think that speaks back to what Mr. Casper is saying, that, Mr. Loeffler, these are the people that we have chosen and tasked with this job to go out, bring us the information, and bring us what should be the best information. And again, we're asking them to do that. Do they come back and, yes, there can be questions, but at some point, and my feeling personally is that I have to put my faith in the people that we've tasked to do this job. So.
But each of us brings a skill set to the table as well.
I understand.
And that expertise is what I'm trying to prevent us from making a mistake that could cost us down the road.
Sorry. Thank you. So, yeah, I agree with Bill.
none of us are hesitant to answer your questions. So don't hesitate to send them to us. This, I think, Mr. Loeffler, because it's a new thing that we haven't really talked about before, I can see why there are a lot of questions and concerns. And I'm glad, Dr. Yarnell, you brought up about the buses, because I don't think any of us said we're going to put cameras on buses because we want to catch students doing, bad things. They're all the safety of the bus driver, safety of the students, and also they do help when situations happen. We then have proof of who did what, and that protects the victim, and it also protects the drivers and all the other students on there. So that, we'll go back to your question, Mrs. Coleman, about our philosophy. Our philosophy is that we want everybody to be safe.
I have to say I don't support it. I still think the cameras are too many. I just heard Mr. Loeffler say they should be able to be updated. I'm very concerned spending $1.5 million on technology that certainly can be obsolete within, like Mrs. Schmidt said, pointed out in the box. The other thing in here, we always compare, like Mr. Castor said, we always look to our districts to see what's going on. And the statement is, in here, is that every district has cameras. Again, do they have, how many is it? 500 cameras? I have a problem with the amount of cameras, and I have a problem with the $1.5 million price. So I do not support this. Thank you.
Well, Mrs. Miller, to speak to that, I think, I'm not one that's going to necessarily say how many cameras. I don't think that would be my place to do it. I think Mr. Loeffler, he and I had a discussion before, we spoke about it, and he did say that it was a very thorough walk of the buildings, going through, trying to find out where potential no sight lines would be, things of that nature. So in my opinion, I think it was very well thought out in terms of the placement of cameras and the number of cameras. I don't think there's just really no throw cameras here or there. And I would have to defer to someone who knows the buildings, walks the buildings, and then they're getting feedback also from the quote-unquote experts. My concern came in also regarding the philosophy of it, but Dr. Radigan, you make a very good point that the cameras are on the buses. They're there for what we hope to protect anyone that might have an issue or a problem on there. So I'm going to support this going forward, and it's just that it is somewhat concerned with the philosophy of it, but you put me at ease, Dr. Radigan, so I will support it.
I just wanted to real quick speak to, because Ada, obviously, your biggest concern is the number of cameras here. And,
Well,
the
no,
numbers,
the price tag.
and the price
The
tag.
price tag.
It's 1.1
Yes.
million. We were budgeted 1.5. It's 1.1.
I understand.
I understand. But, and I agree, when we got this breakdown of the cameras, we went from 110 to 493 cameras, which is a lot. But then when I looked at the list too, to realize that of that list, there's 4 buildings that only have cameras.
I understand.
So it is a difficult question. How many is the right number of cameras? We don't have a big variance across the board as far as through the elementary schools. It's pretty consistent. Your numbers are, granted, a couple of the schools are bigger than others. Sellersville has the most, but it's a big building. And again, for me, I guess what Mr. Regoma says, that, I'm personally accepting the recommendation of who we've asked to assess this and everything. But I understand, I hear what you're saying. It seems like we've gone from one extreme to the other here.
Exactly. And in here, it just states that every school district has cameras, and they don't say we have, so that could be one camera at the door. I don't think this was, I understand it was a walkthrough, but I guess again, the technology becomes obsolete so quickly. I understand the cameras the last 10 years, but, and Mr. Wofford just said, we should be able to update. Well, that's not, $1.5 million. Yikes, we should be able to update. This is very comforting to me.
But
So I still don't support it.
On that, Mrs. Miller, though, there is the electrical upgrade part of it. So I think the camera situation is separate from you're including the electrical in there also. If I'm reading this right, if I understand.
The cameras alone are 1.1.
Right, okay.
The budget for that was 1.5, and then the electrical is a separate bid, but that encompasses both cameras and phones.
Okay. And the phones in there also. So, and it's also, we do have, in terms of number of buildings, where the cameras are going out. So that, to me, would
Yeah,
make
but-
sense in terms of the quantity of, and when they're dispersed throughout the number of buildings that we do have.
Just to clarify, the number that we are seeing in front, what we're referencing, the electrical upgrades, that is electrical upgrades for cameras and phones, but not including phone systems, only electrical upgrades. So when we say phone, when we're referencing the phones, it's electric, not actual phones itself, so that there's no misunderstanding there. So it brings us to the question of voting on this evening so that we can move forward with this project, because as Dr. Radigan said and Mr. Daubert, this was a bid. If we turn it down, then we are back at square one when we decide to, and if and when we decide to move forward with this. So I'm seeing, do we want to have, after the meeting this evening, a special board meeting in order to vote on this, to move this project forward as part of the capital projects for this summer? Dr. Yarnell supports it. Mr. Casper supports it. Mr. Kraus? Okay. Mrs. Miller? Mr. Redondo? Mrs. Cullen?
I'm not sure what I would.
Can you speak up, please? I can't even hear you.
Can we have how many people? 7? We can vote with.
We're not voting tonight.
Well, if we would have a special board meeting after this meeting,
Is
we'd
Christie
be
allowed?
allowed.
Is
It'd
Christie
be
good?
just 5. It does sound like a lot of cameras, but again, if that is what the people who did the actual footwork decided was needed, I'm just thinking of the high school and how big and, the stairwells, the different hallways and things like that. So, I guess I would support it. I'm not a big fan of over camera and things, but if that's what they say is necessary, then. And the only difference I would point out with the buses is that the buses are district kind of rolling facilities. They're away from here. It's harder to know what happened and to substantiate what happened on a bus than it might be in a building. And so that for me was the difference with the bus cameras, being on all the time. And I do want to go back at some point, even if we support it and the cameras get installed, I do want to revisit the concern about how we're going to relate to the parents, how these things are going to be used. Okay?
So do we want to, excuse me, do this evening after we're adjourned from the facilities and finance? I believe that was what we were informed of, that we would hold a special board meeting this evening after the conclusion of this meeting.
That was the plan, and part of this is the timing of a bid.
Correct.
The bid does expire at some point. And the next meeting presumably would be the March 27th board meeting, so it's almost a month away.
So time is.
So I think if there's support, we should do this tonight. If there's not support, then we will hold that meeting. It sounds to me like you have 5
Sounds as if we
votes.
have support and.
And we need 5 votes.
Yeah, we need 5
Can't be
votes.
done 4 to 3.
So we'll move forward this evening. Okay? Thank you. The third item then is the review of the district-wide electrical upgrades, the bid results. Mr. Loeffler?
Well, we had a bid opening on Friday, so we had 2 bids come in. Ace Electric base bid at $384,900, and Aberell Electric at $586,865. Now, if you notice, the 2 bids are about $200,000 difference, and one of the reasons in the past, Ace and Aberell have both been low bid on many jobs at Pennridge, so normally their bids are right beside each other. So noticing that Ace is about $200,000 less, the reason is because they thought they were going to be here. You know, they were already going to have ceiling tiles out and ladders out and pulling cable for the camera bid. So they were able to reduce their bid quite a bit. So a recommendation for Ace bid for Ace Electric at the $384,900.
Questions on this bid and what exactly it entails, since, as we stated, this does involve both the cameras and the proposed phones. Mrs. Miller, would you answer any questions? Thank you.
You're terrified.
Sorry, I'm not putting you on the spot that much.
Wrong, Mrs. Miller, wrong, Mrs. Miller. So basically what this bid is for is to actually go into each of the IDF and the MDFs, or the closets, the heart of the network, and to make sure that the switches that carry all the network connectivity throughout the district, that if we do have a power outage or a power failure, that everything will stay up. Because as we move forward, you know, with the cameras and with the phones, which will all be IP based as well, it's critical that we don't take any network outages. So the closets that, and we'll call them closets, the closets that can be put onto generators, because there's still generator space or generator capacity, we're going to put those closets onto the generator. Those closets that we can't add onto the generator because we're close to capacity and they've done, you know, their power recommendations, and Jeff knows that better than I do. We're going to put a UPS in there, and there'll be an intelligent UPS, and we can monitor them and make sure that, you know, the batteries are good, and we can take a look at the health of the system. So that's really basically what this bid is for here. It's for power conditioning and to make sure that everything is up all the time for these, you know, integral pieces to the network.
And Mr. Locklear, you had stated to me that because of the fact that it basically is working in our favor to be able to do these 2 in conjunction, that the cameras and the phone, as opposed to 2 separate electrical projects, the bid price as it came in was favorable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way we bid it helped the bids, and then again, Ace being both low bid on both. If Ace didn't have the camera bid, their bid would be up at $500,000 also. Ace and Aberell have always been, you know, just switching back and forth of low bids, so we know they're busy up there.
Peter?
Yes, my question is, we looked on the camera bid as very favorable because there were 8 bidders who actually submitted the numbers. And this is the exact opposite. Even though we got a good bid, it seems surprising to me on a job like this that we would only see 2 actual bidders. And do you have any comment as to why that might have happened?
Josh Rice, doing engineering. Josh was part of the major high school project. He's back down to visit us for a little bit. Go ahead, and I have to answer too.
Thanks, Jeff. Really what I can say right now is across the board, it's a very busy time for contractors, especially public bidding contractors. I think Ace and Alvarell, having been in the district prior, knowing the facilities, obviously they were attracted to bid on these 2 projects. So I think really it's the market factor right now. A lot of contractors are very busy. Summer obviously is a very busy time frame for them. So I think that is probably why we only saw a couple bids for a rather limited scope, I will say, in the grand scheme of what contractors are capable of doing.
questions? Now, this piece does, this electrical upgrade, this doesn't have to be voted on tonight in order to move to the March agenda.
Correct. This is the first time talking about it in the facilities.
Anything? No? Are we okay with moving it to the March agenda?
I'm good with.
Okay. I'm sorry?
This I'm good with.
Okay.
Diane, I'll go too far. Okay, so with basically what we talked about tonight, message received loud and clear from board members, and we talked about, Mr. Casper, you mentioned the phone system. So here's where we're at this point in time. We as a team within the district, led by Mrs. Miller, Mr. Knopfler, Mrs. Burkholder involved, myself, met with 3 different phone companies, phone systems, multiple dates, and we viewed those systems very in depth, I would say. Since those meetings, Diane has been working very hard to build a phone system specification. A big part of the phone system that we looked at are the security features which come with a phone system, and being able to communicate clearly and quickly with all of our classrooms within the building by our principals and our central office administration. So that was a message from the school board as we began to look at phone systems. Was we wanted a phone system that would deal that would help with security features. And just why we had Mrs. Burkholder involved, and she's very much in charge of or in dealings with the security system in the buildings and for the students. Diane has worked very hard along with our engineers to develop a specification for the phone system. We're at the point where we are ready to send that specification out to the phone companies and get specification results back from those companies and bring those results to you as a board. So basically what I'm asking the board is Diane to come back into technology meeting or the next facilities meeting, wherever it fits, the next curriculum meeting, and she could talk about the procedures we went through, what we're looking for in the phone system, what's in those specifications, and we could go through that. We could answer questions, you'd have a chance to ask questions. We could do it that way. Or we can provide all that information to you. Of course, we would provide it to you beforehand, but we can provide it to you. And those of you who want to ask questions can do that. So I guess I'm asking for direction as to how you would like us to proceed. So we have a lot of work into all of these projects, the 2 that we looked at tonight and the phone system. Dr.
I will say that the next curriculum committee meeting is on Monday night, the 6th, and it is a rather full agenda with actually 2 of our former board presidents who are, I would say, if they will disagree, as valuable as I am, so we probably don't want to add it to that night unless it's an urgent issue. The curriculum committee that will follow, and perhaps it will be the technology committee only, but there is one scheduled for April 10th, which would be the next one on that side of the fence. And the next facilities committee, I believe, is April 6th. So they're a month off or a little more. I don't know whether that timing makes any difference. I mean, I certainly can live with the information being sent to us, but that's just mine.
Any opinions on that? I think it's more the timeliness of the information coming out. You know, we'll get the information out to board members by email quicker and have that in their hands, and if there's any questions to be asked, you know, as opposed to waiting for an April meeting. I think, you know, if you can get it out there sooner.
Yeah, I kind of agree that having it electronically certainly gives us the leisure of looking at it, you know, when we have time to. But the one thing that we miss is this conversation in doing that. You know, we can send an email, but you don't have the conversation. So I can live with it either way at this point.
When do we anticipate actually having bid them for the phone system?
The date that we have right now would be April 24th? We're in March, so April 24th.
So this potentially will not be voted on until our May board
No.
meeting. No?
March?
Is it
March
March?
22nd?
March 22nd, I'm sorry, I'm all
Okay.
messed up. It is March already, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah,
Right,
March
we're-
22nd.
We're ready to go out with the proposal. We would have a pre-proposal meeting March 10th, and then the bids would be due with a proposal. It's really an RFP going out, not really a public bid, it's an RFP. And those results are due March 22nd. I'm sorry, so it would be voted on in April. Current time frame.
So again, my comment on that is if you're going out to bid, I don't want to get back in this situation where we're discussing this when we're trying to actually authorize a bid. So I think the electronic information at the very least should go out before we get to that point so that if board members say, no, I'm not comfortable with it, you know that in advance, not at the back end. That's what I'm trying to prevent, actually.
We can have the spec out to you by Friday, like we're ready to rock with the spec right now. So that can certainly be distributed.
We'll have it to you, so the board members.
Good start, yeah.
Then we can always discuss it at a meeting.
All right, I think we're all good with that? Okay. And that finishes the facilities portion of the meeting. Any comments? No? Then, Mr. Casper, it's yours.